The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. They dreamed of distant worlds, of alien life, of adventures beyond their small blue planet. And finally, after centuries of work and sacrifice, they answered that call. The ship was called the Defiance. It was not a pretty ship. It was not elegant like the vessels humans had imagined in their stories. It was a machine built for survival, covered in thick armor and bristling with weapons. Captain Tejo stood on the bridge and watched the stars stretch into lines as the ship entered faster-than-light travel for the first time in human history. "Jump successful," announced Lieutenant June from his station. "We are now 300 light-years from Earth." Tejo allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. After decades of failed experiments, after the deaths of brave test pilots, after the doubts of politicians and the fears of ordinary people, humanity had finally broken free from its home system. Dr. Yuna looked up from her science console. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. "Captain, I am detecting massive structures ahead. Artificial structures. Someone built them." The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what this meant. They were not alone in the universe. Engineer Hana pulled up the sensor data on the main screen. What they saw made them catch their breath. Ahead of them floated a station the size of a small moon. Ships of every shape and size moved around it like fish around a coral reef. Some were elegant and smooth. Others were jagged and aggressive. All of them were clearly not made by human hands. "Well," said Tejo quietly, "I suppose we found our neighbors." What the crew of the Defiance did not know was that their arrival had already been noticed. In the great council chamber at the heart of that massive station, alarms were sounding. Elder Voss had led the Galactic Council for over 2,000 years. His species lived for a very long time. And he had seen many things. He had seen wars that burned across entire star systems. He had seen plagues that wiped out whole civilizations. He had seen young species rise and fall like waves on a beach. Nothing surprised him anymore. Until now. "Explain this to me again," he said, his voice like grinding stone. A ship appeared from nowhere. A ship using faster-than-light technology. And we have never seen this species before. Counselor Tama stepped forward. Her species communicated through colors that rippled across their skin, but she had learned to speak in the common tongue long ago. "The ship emerged from a wormhole near the outer marker. Our records show no contact with their home system. They developed this technology on their own." "That is impossible," said another counselor. "The equations for faster-than-light travel were given to us by the builders. No species has ever discovered them independently." "And yet," said Tema, "here they are." Elder Voss looked at the image of the human ship on the display. It was ugly, primitive, and somehow terrifying. In 3 million years of galactic civilization, no species had ever achieved faster-than-light travel without Council guidance. The Council controlled that technology. They decided who received it and when. It was the foundation of their power. "Bring them in," he ordered. "Send a fleet. Show them who rules this galaxy." Ambassador Kira, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Elder, perhaps we should attempt peaceful contact first. We know nothing about these beings. We do not know their intentions." Tema's skin flashed red with contempt. "Their intentions do not matter. They are a young species that has stumbled upon dangerous technology. They must be controlled before they cause harm to themselves or others. This is standard protocol." Voss nodded slowly. "Send the fleet. Demand their surrender. If they refuse, destroy their ship and send a warning to their homeworld. This matter will be resolved quickly." But matters involving humanity were never resolved quickly. Captain Tejo watched as 50 warships surrounded the Defiance. Each one was larger than his vessel. Each one had weapons that could tear through his hull like paper. He felt fear, yes, but he did not show it. A captain never showed fear. "They are hailing us," said June. "Put it on screen." The face that appeared was strange. It belonged to Tama, though Tejo did not know her name yet. Her skin shifted through shades of purple and blue as she spoke. "Unidentified vessel. You have entered Galactic Council space without permission. You possess technology that is regulated by Council law. You will shut down your engines, surrender your ship, and submit to Council authority. Your home world will be visited, evaluated, and placed under observation for the next 500 years. This is not a negotiation. This is an order. Taeho felt anger building in his chest. 500 years. They wanted to put humanity under observation, like animals in a cage. They wanted to control Earth, to decide its future, to treat humans like children who could not be trusted with matches. He thought about his home. He thought about his family, his people, his world. He thought about all the blood and tears that had gone into building this ship, into reaching the stars. And he thought about what Earth would say if he surrendered everything to strangers who had not earned the right to command them. Dr. Yuna, he said quietly, start recording. Make sure this transmission reaches Earth. No matter what happens. Yes, Captain. Taeho stood straight and looked directly into the screen. My name is Captain Taeho, of the Earth vessel Defiance. I speak for my world and my people. We came here in peace, seeking only to explore and learn. We did not know this space was claimed. We meant no offense. He paused. The council chamber was silent, watching, waiting. But you have asked me to surrender my ship and place my world under your control. This I cannot do. Earth is a free world. We bowed to no emperor, no king, no tyrant in our history who tried to take that freedom from us. We will not start now. Tema's colors shifted to angry red. You do not understand your situation. You are one ship against an armada. You have no choice. There is always a choice, said Taeho. And I choose to stand. Earth bows to no one. He cut the transmission. For a long moment, no one on the Defiance spoke. They all knew what would come next. They all knew they would probably die here. Far from home. In the cold space between stars. But not one of them suggested surrender. Not one of them asked Taeho to change his mind. Hana looked up from her console. Captain, I have some tricks ready. They might buy us time. June nodded. I have been studying their formations. They are predictable. We can hurt them. Yuna smiled grimly. If we are going to die, let us make sure the council remembers this day. Taeho looked at his crew, his friends, his family in all but blood. He felt proud. Whatever happened next, humanity would not go quietly into the night. All hands, he announced over the ship-wide channel. Prepare for battle. On the council station, Elder Voss watched the human ship begin to move. It was not running. It was not trying to escape. It was moving toward the fleet, weapons charging. They are insane, whispered one of the counselors. Voss said nothing. But deep in his ancient heart, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. Uncertainty. These humans were unlike any species the council had ever encountered. They faced death with defiance instead of fear. They chose war over submission. For the first time in 3 million years, Elder Voss wondered if the council had finally met something it could not control. The stars trembled. History was about to change. The Defiance had escaped. Against all logic, against all probability, the small human ship had fought through 50 council warships and fled into the darkness of space. They had lost shields, weapons, and nearly half their crew. But they had survived. Captain Taeho sat in the medical bay, a bandage wrapped around his head. The battle had been brutal. Council weapons had torn through sections of the ship. Good people had died, but Hana's tricks had worked. Her shield modifications had confused enemy targeting systems. June's unpredictable maneuvers had caused 2 council ships to collide with each other. And when an opening appeared, Taeho had ordered a jump into faster than light, leaving the stunned council fleet behind. Now they raced toward Earth, carrying a warning and a recording that would change everything. Warlord Drak stood before the council, his massive frame trembling with rage. His species were warriors, bred for combat over thousands of generations. They had never known defeat. Until now. Explain to me, said Elder Voss, how 50 of our finest warships failed to capture one primitive vessel. Drak's voice was a low growl. They fought without reason. without fear. When we damaged their engines, they continued forward. When we killed their crew members, the survivors fought harder. They used weapons we banned millennia ago. Nuclear weapons. They detonated them against their own hull to create shockwaves that disrupted our formations. The council chamber erupted in shock. Nuclear weapons were forbidden. Every civilized species knew they were too dangerous, too destructive. Only savages would use such things. They are monsters, said Councillor Tema. Wild animals that must be put down before they spread their madness across the galaxy. Ambassador Kira spoke carefully. Or perhaps they are simply a species that has never been taught our rules. They developed alone, without guidance. We cannot expect them to follow laws they never learned. It does not matter, said Elder Voss. They have refused council authority. They have attacked our ships. This cannot stand. Warlord Drac, take a proper fleet this time. Go to their home system. End this. Drac smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. With pleasure. 2 months later, the Council Armada arrived in the Sol system. 200 warships, the largest fleet assembled in 300 years. Drac stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the small yellow sun that these humans called home. Pathetic, he muttered. One small star. A handful of rocky planets. This is what defied the Galactic Council? But Admiral Sung had been preparing for this day since the Defiance returned home. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his mind was sharp as a blade. He had watched the recordings from the Defiance 100 times. He had studied every council ship, every weapon, every tactic, and he had prepared surprises. Let them come, he said from Earth Defense Command. Let them think they have already won. The council fleet moved past the outer planets, Neptune and Uranus. They detected no resistance. Past Saturn, with its beautiful rings, still nothing. They grew confident. Clearly, the humans had realized their mistake. Clearly, they would surrender. Then they reached Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Lieutenant June, now commanding his own ship, gave the signal. Launch Protocol Swarm. From hidden bases across Titan's frozen surface, thousands of small drones rose into space. They were tiny things, no larger than a human fist. The council sensors barely registered them, but each drone carried a nuclear warhead. Drac saw the swarm approaching and felt the first touch of fear. Shields to maximum. All ships, defensive formation. But council shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They were designed to deflect plasma bolts and laser beams. They were not designed to stop physical objects that simply flew through and exploded against the hull. The first wave of drones hit the council fleet like a storm of fire. Nuclear explosions bloomed across space, each one a tiny sun. Ships that had traveled across the galaxy were torn apart in seconds. Crews that had conquered 100 worlds died without ever seeing their enemy. Drac screamed orders, trying to reorganize his fleet. But the humans were not finished. From behind, the moon emerged Earth's fleet. 200 ships to match the Council's numbers. But these were not the same ships that had fled from the first battle. Engineer Hana had spent 2 months working day and night. She had taken every piece of Council technology recovered from destroyed enemy vessels and improved it. She had created shields that rotated through frequencies so fast that enemy weapons could not lock on. She had built engines that made human ships faster than anything the Council had ever seen. Dr. Yuna had contributed as well. She had studied the alien bodies recovered from the battle, learning their weaknesses. Now human ships carried specialized gas weapons that targeted the specific biology of Council species. Not lethal, but disabling. Enemy crews collapsed at their stations, unable to fight. The battle became chaos. Council ships fired at targets that vanished and reappeared somewhere else. Their weapons splashed harmlessly against shields that seemed to know exactly how to stop them. Meanwhile, human ships danced through their formations, launching missiles and drones with terrifying precision. June commanded his ship like an artist painting with fire. He had studied Council tactics for months and found them predictable. They always moved in formation. They always protected their flagships. They always retreated when losses reached 20%. Humans did none of these things. Human ships fought alone. In pairs. in groups that formed and dissolved without warning. They attacked from every direction at once. They targeted engines and life support instead of bridges and weapon systems. They did not try to destroy enemy ships. They tried to cripple them, to turn the battlefield into a graveyard of drifting, helpless vessels. After 14 hours, Warlord Drac gave the order to retreat. Of his 200 warships, only 11 remained operational. The rest were destroyed or disabled, their crews dead or captured or drifting helplessly in the cold void. He sent a transmission to the council as he fled. His voice shook. His pride was broken. They do not fight like any species we have encountered. They do not follow any rules of warfare. They do not care about their own losses. They fight like they have nothing to lose. Like they would rather die than surrender a single world. Elder Voss watched the report with growing horror. Around him, the counselors whispered in fear. For the first time in living memory, the council had lost a war. Not just a battle. A war. This is impossible, said Tama. They are primitives. They only achieved faster than light travel recently. How can they defeat our fleets? Ambassador Kira had been thinking about this question for weeks. Now she spoke. Because they are not like us. We built our civilization over millions of years. We grew slowly, carefully, always in control. They built theirs in a few thousand years. They are used to change. They are used to struggle. They are used to fighting for survival against impossible odds. She paused, looking at the footage of burning council ships. We forgot what it means to fight for our existence. They never had the chance to forget. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Sung allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had won. Earth was safe. But he was wise enough to know this was not the end. They will come back, he told his officers. With more ships, with new weapons, with better tactics. We surprised them today. We will not surprise them twice. Captain Teho, still recovering from his injuries, nodded. Then we need to be ready. We need to build more ships. We need to find allies. We need to take the fight to them before they can gather their full strength. The war had only begun. But humanity had proven something important. They could not be easily conquered. They could not be intimidated. They would fight with every weapon, every trick, every ounce of courage in their hearts. And across the galaxy, other species were watching. Slave races who served the council. Conquered worlds who had forgotten their freedom. Oppressed peoples who had lost all hope. They saw the recordings of the Battle of Titan. They saw small human ships destroying mighty council warships. They heard Captain Teho's words echoing across the stars. Earth bows to no one. And something stirred in their hearts. Something they had not felt in a very long time. Hope. The council decided to try diplomacy. After the disaster at Titan, even the most aggressive counselors understood that humanity could not be crushed with simple force. They needed a different approach. Ambassador Kira volunteered for the mission. She was the only one who had shown any interest in understanding humans rather than destroying them. Some counselors thought she was foolish. Others thought she was a traitor. But Elder Voss approved her request. He was desperate. Kira's ship arrived in the Sol system carrying a white flag, the universal symbol of peace that humans had somehow invented independently. She was escorted to Earth by a squadron of human fighters, their weapons trained on her vessel the entire time. She did not blame them. The meeting took place in Geneva, in a building that humans called the United Nations. Kira had studied human history during her journey. She found it fascinating and terrifying. These beings had been killing each other for their entire existence. They had weapons that could destroy their own planet. And yet somehow, they had survived. Somehow, they had reached the stars. Admiral Sung met her at the door. His face was stone. Ambassador, you have come a long way. I have come to offer peace, said Kira. Sung led her to a conference room where the leaders of Earth were waiting. Captain Teho was there, along with Dr. Yuna, Lieutenant Jun, and Engineer Hana. Politicians from every nation sat around a long table. They all watched Kira with suspicious eyes. She presented her offer carefully. The Council is prepared to accept humanity as a member. You will have representation. You will have protection. You will have access to our technology and our trade networks. And what do we give in return? Asked Sung. Kira hesitated. This was the difficult part. You will accept council authority in matters of interstellar law. Your military expansion will be limited. Your development of certain technologies will be monitored. You will be a junior member, with restricted voting rights, for a period of 500 years. The room was silent. Then Sung did something Kira did not expect. He laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had heard a very bad joke. Let me understand, he said. You want us to put ourselves under your control. You want to decide how we grow, what we build, where we go. You want to treat us like children who cannot be trusted. It is standard procedure for young species, Kira explained. The transition period allows you to learn council ways. To become civilized, Dr. Yuna spoke up. Her voice was soft, but sharp. Civilized? Your council has kept dozens of species as slaves. Your laws allow the strong to exploit the weak. You call this civilization? Kira felt shame. She could not deny it. The council's record was not clean. Many species had suffered under their rule, but she believed that working within the system was better than fighting it. We are not perfect, but we have maintained peace for millions of years. Is that not worth something? Captain Tejo stood. Ambassador, I was there when your council first contacted us. They did not offer friendship. They demanded surrender. They sent warships to enslave my world. Now they offer a cage with comfortable walls and call it peace. He walked to the window and looked out at the sky. My people have a saying. Freedom is not given. It is taken. We took our freedom from kings and emperors. We took it from dictators and tyrants. We will not give it away to strangers who have not earned the right to rule us. Kira felt something strange. Admiration. These humans were stubborn, yes. Dangerous, yes. But there was something noble about their refusal to submit, something that reminded her of old stories, of her own ancestors before they joined the council. I understand, she said quietly. But I must warn you. If you refuse this offer, the council will not stop. They will send more fleets. They will destroy your colonies. They will break you eventually. Admiral Sung smiled. It was not a nice smile. Let me show you something, Ambassador. He led her to a military facility outside the city. What she saw there made her blood run cold. In massive hangars, hundreds of human ships were being built. But these were not like the ships she had seen before. They were larger, more powerful. Their designs incorporated council technology, but improved beyond recognition. 2 years ago, said Sung, we could barely reach our own moon. Today, we have ships that can match your best. In 2 more years, we will have ships that can defeat your best. Your council took millions of years to build your civilization. We did this in decades. He turned to face her. We learn, Ambassador. We adapt. We improve. It is what we do. Your council cannot stop us because by the time they understand what we are doing, we have already moved on to something new. Kira returned to council space with her report. She stood before Elder Voss and spoke the truth, even though she knew it would frighten them. They refused your offer. They will not submit. And they are advancing at a rate I have never seen in any species. What takes us centuries, they accomplish in years. If we continue this war, I do not know who will win. Councillor Tema was furious. Impossible. They are primitives. We have technology they cannot imagine. They took your technology from the Battle of Titan, said Kira. They studied it. They improved it. They already have ships faster than ours. Weapons more accurate than ours. They are not primitives, Counselor. They are predators. The council chamber exploded into argument. Some demanded immediate war. Others called for negotiation. Some suggested simply leaving humanity alone and hoping they would not spread further. But the damage was already done. And it was spreading. Across council space, The recordings from Earth's defiance had gone viral. Slave species watched Captain Tejo's declaration over and over. Earth bows to no one. These words became a symbol, a battle cry, a prayer. On a mining world called Vetha, workers who had served the Council for 3,000 years stopped working. They gathered in secret and watched human battle footage. They saw small ships destroying mighty warships. They saw slaves becoming free. "If they can do it," whispered their leader, "perhaps we can too." On the pleasure planets of the Rim, servants who had been bred for obedience began to ask questions. Why did they serve? Who had decided their fate? What would happen if they simply refused? Underground networks formed. Resistance cells communicated in codes based on human languages. Rebel groups adopted human tactics: guerrilla warfare, sabotage, asymmetric combat. They called themselves the Children of Earth, even though they had never seen that distant blue planet. Elder Voss watched his empire begin to crack. 3 million years of order, of control, of carefully managed peace, all threatened by one stubborn species that refused to know its place. "How do we stop this?" he asked Kira. She thought for a long moment. "I do not think we can. Not with force. Not with threats. The humans have shown the galaxy something it had forgotten: that the powerful are not always right, that the weak can become strong, that freedom is worth fighting for." She looked at the old elder with something like pity. "You built your council on fear, elder. Fear of chaos, fear of change, fear of the unknown. The humans are not afraid, and now others are learning not to be afraid either." Tima demanded war. Total war. The complete destruction of Earth and every human colony. "We must make an example. We must show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us." But even as she spoke, reports came in of more rebellions, more uprisings, more species demanding freedom. The fire was spreading faster than the Council could contain it, and at the center of that fire, humanity prepared for the greatest battle in its history. They knew the Council would come with everything they had. They knew the next fight would determine the fate of their species. Captain Tejo addressed his fleet. His words were broadcast across Earth and every human colony. "They think we are weak because we are young. They think we are foolish because we refuse to surrender. But we are neither weak nor foolish. We are human, and humans do not give up. We do not stop fighting. We do not accept limits on what we can achieve." He raised his fist to the stars. "Let them come. Let them bring their millions of ships and their ancient weapons. We will meet them. We will fight them. And we will win, not just for ourselves, but for every species that has ever dreamed of freedom." Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched. Billions of hearts beat faster. Billions of voices whispered the same words: "Earth bows to no one." The final battle was coming, and nothing would ever be the same. 3,000 warships darkened the stars. The Council had gathered every vessel from every member species. Ancient battleships that had conquered galaxies. Sleek destroyers built by races older than Earth itself. Massive carriers filled with fighters that numbered in the millions. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in the history of the Galactic Council. Elder Voss himself had come to watch. His personal vessel floated at the center of the armada, surrounded by 1,000 guards. He wanted to see the end of humanity with his own eyes. He wanted to watch their blue planet burn. Counselor Tema stood beside him, her colors shifting with excitement. "Finally, today we end this rebellion. Today we remind the galaxy why the Council rules." But Ambassador Kira, also present, felt only dread. She had seen what humans could do. She knew that numbers alone did not guarantee victory. The fleet entered the Sol system slowly, cautiously. They had learned from Titan. This time, they scanned for traps. They spread out their formations. They kept their shields at maximum power, and they found nothing. No ambushes, no hidden bases, no swarms of nuclear drones. Just 200 human ships, waiting near the orbit of Mars. Tema laughed. "Is this all? 200 ships against 3,000? They have given up. They know they cannot win. But Voss was not laughing. He studied the human fleet carefully. Their ships were different from before. Sleeker. More dangerous looking. And they were not running. They were not even moving. They just waited, silent and still. "Something is wrong," he muttered. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Tejo stood calm and steady. Around him, his crew prepared for battle. Dr. Yuna monitored enemy communications. Lieutenant June calculated attack vectors on his console. Engineer Hana made final adjustments to systems she had spent months perfecting. Admiral Sung spoke through the comm system from Earth. "Tejo, you do not have to do this. We can evacuate. We can retreat. We can find another way," Tejo smiled. "Admiral, with respect, you know we cannot run. If we flee today, we will be running forever. This is our home. We defend it here or we die here. There is no other choice." Sung was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Give them hell, Captain." "Yes, sir." The Council fleet advanced. 3,000 ships moving in perfect formation, their weapons charging, their crews confident. They outnumbered the humans 15-1. Victory was certain, and then the humans began to move. Tejo had divided his fleet into small groups, each with a specific mission. They did not try to fight the entire enemy armada. Instead, they targeted specific ships. Flagships, communication vessels, supply carriers. The beating heart of the Council fleet. "Launch the Ghosts," ordered Tejo. Hana activated her newest creation. She called them ghost drives because of what they did. Human ships seemed to vanish from sensors, appearing somewhere completely different a moment later. They were not actually teleporting. They were using a combination of sensor jamming and micro jumps to create the illusion of being everywhere and nowhere at once. Council gunners fired at targets that were already gone. Their weapons hit empty space while human ships appeared behind them and struck at their engines. Massive warships found themselves spinning out of control, their propulsion systems destroyed by enemies they could not track. Dr. Yuna unleashed her biological weapons. Not deadly gases, but carefully designed compounds that affected the specific metabolisms of each Council species. Enemy crews began to feel sick. Their reflexes slowed. Their thinking became confused. They were not dying, but they could not fight effectively. June commanded the tactical assault teams. Small groups of human marines in armored suits launched from their ships and attached to enemy vessels. They cut through hulls, fought through corridors, and seized control of bridge systems. Council crews woke from their biological stupor to find humans standing over them with weapons drawn. "Surrender your ship," June told one captain, "and your crew will be treated with honor. Fight, and we will disable your life support. The choice is yours." Ship after ship fell to these boarding parties. The Council had never faced this tactic before. Their wars were fought at range, with energy weapons and missiles. The idea of soldiers physically entering enemy vessels was considered primitive, barbaric, suicidal. But humans had been fighting boarding actions for thousands of years, ever since their ancestors first sailed wooden ships across their oceans. They knew how to fight in tight spaces. They knew how to take what they wanted. Elder Voss watched his fleet crumble. Ships that should have been invincible were drifting, disabled, captured. His admirals reported chaos on all frequencies. Nothing was working as planned. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "We have 3,000 ships," Kira answered quietly. "Because they are not fighting your ships. They are fighting your minds. Every tactic they use is designed to confuse, to frighten, to make your crews doubt themselves. They win battles before they fire a single weapon." She was right. Across the Council fleet, panic was spreading. Crews saw their comrades disabled by invisible enemies. They heard reports of ghost ships that could not be hit. They watched flagships fall silent, their bridges captured by human soldiers. Fear spread faster than any weapon. Some ships began to retreat without orders. Others simply stopped fighting, their crews paralyzed by uncertainty. A few even switched sides, their captains deciding they would rather join humanity than die for a council that had failed them. The battle lasted 3 months. Not because humans could not win faster, but because they did not want to destroy the enemy fleet. They wanted to capture it. Every ship they took was a ship they could use. Every crew they spared was potential allies. Tejo understood something the council never had. This war was not about killing. It was about ideas. Every act of mercy, every captured crew released with honor, every fair treatment of prisoners sent a message to the galaxy. Humans were not monsters. They were not savages. They were something far more dangerous. They were better. Finally, the remains of the council fleet fled. Of 3,000 ships, fewer than 500 escaped. The rest were destroyed, captured, or had surrendered. The siege of Earth, meant to crush humanity forever, had become the greatest defeat in council history. Voss stood in his command center, watching the disaster unfold. Around him, his advisors wept or raged or simply stared in shock. 3 million years of dominance, broken in 3 months by a species that had only reached the stars 4 years ago. How? He asked no one. How did they do this? Kira stood beside him. She did not feel triumph. She felt sadness for the old elder, for the order she had served her whole life, now burning before her eyes. They did what we forgot how to do, she said. They fought not just with weapons, but with ideas. They fought not just to win, but to inspire. They showed the galaxy that the council could be defeated. And once that idea spread, your power was already broken. On Earth, celebrations erupted across every continent. People who had feared for their lives, who had prepared for extinction, now danced in the streets and wept with joy. They had won, against impossible odds, against ancient enemies, against the rulers of the galaxy. They had won. But Admiral Sung did not celebrate. He stood in his command center, staring at star charts, already planning the next phase. The war is not over, he told his staff. We have won a battle. But the Council still controls most of the galaxy. Billions of beings still live under their rule. Our work has only begun, Captain Tejo agreed. We did not fight this war just for Earth. We fought it for freedom. And freedom is not something you win once and keep forever. It must be defended, protected, spread to every corner of the universe. Dr. Yuna looked at the captured ships now being repaired in Earth orbit. We have a fleet now. A real fleet. And we have allies. The resistance movements on Council worlds are growing stronger every day. The fire we started is spreading. June smiled his sharp smile. Then let us spread it faster. Let us take this fight to them. Let every slave world see that freedom is possible. Let every tyrant know that humanity is coming. When 41. Access, Hana laughed. I have some new designs for ships. Faster. Stronger. The Council thinks they have seen our best. They have seen nothing. The stars waited. The galaxy trembled. And humanity prepared to change everything. This was not the end of the story. It was barely the beginning. The Council had been beaten, but not destroyed. The war would continue for years, perhaps decades. There would be more battles, more losses, more sacrifices, but something fundamental had changed. The galaxy had seen a young species rise up against the masters of the universe and win. They had seen the impossible become possible, and nothing would ever be the same again. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Seoul. 1 year since the Council's greatest fleet was shattered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. 1 year since the galaxy began to change. Elder Voss sat alone in the great council chamber. The seats around him, once filled with representatives of 12 powerful species, were now mostly empty. Half the member species had withdrawn from the council. Their populations, inspired by human broadcasts about freedom and equality, had demanded change. Politicians who supported the old ways found themselves removed from power. New leaders rose, leaders who spoke of cooperation instead of domination. The slave rebellions had succeeded on 40 worlds. Beings who had served the council for thousands of years now governed themselves. They were not perfect governments. They made mistakes. They struggled, but they were free, and that was what mattered. Voss looked around the empty chamber. The tapestries that celebrated council victories seemed mocking now. The great seal on the floor, showing 12 species united under council rule, was cracked and faded. 3 million years of order, crumbling like dust. A transmission arrived. Voss activated it without enthusiasm. He expected more bad news. More worlds declaring independence. More fleet admirals refusing orders. More evidence that everything he had built was falling apart. Instead, he saw the face of Captain Tejo, the human who had started all of this. The man who had looked at the might of the Galactic Council and said, "No." Tejo was older now, his hair showing streaks of gray. He had been promoted to Fleet Admiral, commanding all of Earth's military forces. But his eyes were the same. Sharp, determined, unyielding. Behind him stood the others, Dr. Yuna, whose biological research had helped win the war. Lieutenant June, now a general in charge of ground forces across a dozen liberated worlds. Engineer Hana, whose inventions had given humanity the edge it needed, and Admiral Sung, gray-haired and tired, but still fighting. "Elder Voss," said Tejo, "I am transmitting to you from the bridge of the New Dawn, humanity's first diplomatic vessel. We are entering council space with peaceful intentions. We wish to talk." Voss felt a flash of anger. Talk? After everything that had happened? After they had destroyed his fleets, freed his slaves, torn apart his empire? Now they wanted to talk? But what choice did he have? He could not fight them anymore. His military was broken. His allies had abandoned him. The council that once ruled the galaxy now controlled only a few dozen worlds. "Very well," he said. "Come." The New Dawn arrived at the council station 3 days later. Tejo and his companions walked through the same corridors where, years ago, they had been condemned as primitives, unworthy of freedom. Now the few remaining council members watched them with a mixture of fear, hatred, and grudging respect. They entered the council chamber. Voss sat on his ancient throne, trying to maintain some dignity. Councillor Tema stood beside him, her colors shifting through shades of anger. Ambassador Kira was there too, but she stood apart, her expression unreadable. "You have won," said Voss without greeting. "What do you want? To humiliate us? To make us kneel as you have made others kneel?" Tejo shook his head. "We did not come to humiliate anyone. We did not fight this war for revenge or glory. We fought because we had no choice. You would have enslaved our world. We could not allow that." He stepped forward, his voice calm but powerful. "We did not ask for this war, but we will not apologize for winning it. The council believed it could control us, contain us, break us. You were wrong." Tema's colors flashed bright red. "You destroyed everything we built. 3 million years of civilization." "Dr. Yuna spoke, her voice gentle but firm. 3 million years of domination, of slavery, of crushing any species that dared to think for itself. You call that civilization? We call it tyranny." June added, "We have spoken with the species you civilized. They told us stories that would make your blood run cold. Genocide, forced labor, cultural extinction. Your council did not bring peace. It brought submission disguised as order." Voss could not deny it. He had always known the council's history was not clean, but he had believed the ends justified the means. Order was worth any price. Stability was worth any sacrifice. Now, looking at these humans who had challenged everything he believed, he was not so sure. Tejo continued, his tone softening. "We are not your enemies. We never were. When we first arrived in your space, we came seeking knowledge, seeking friendship. You responded with threats and warships. You forced us to become warriors, He paused, and his voice grew stronger. But we do not want to spend our future fighting. We have better things to do. We want to explore the universe. We want to learn. We want to build a civilization that our children can be proud of. Hana stepped forward with a data chip. This contains our proposal. We call it the Charter of the Galactic Union. It would replace the Council with a new organization. One based on equality, not hierarchy. One where every species has an equal voice. One where slavery is abolished forever and freedom is protected as a fundamental right. Kira took the chip, her hands trembling slightly. She had dreamed of reform her entire life. She had hoped the Council could change from within. Now, these humans were offering something better, a chance to build something new from the ashes of the old. Why? Asked Voss. You have won. You could simply rule us as we ruled others. Why offer equality to species that tried to destroy you? Admiral Sung, who had been silent until now, answered. Because that is not who we are. We did not fight for power. We fought for freedom. And freedom means nothing if it is only for us. It must be for everyone, or it is for no one. Voss looked at the old human. They were both ancient now, both tired, both carrying the weight of decisions that had changed the course of history. They should have been enemies. Perhaps they were, but there was something in Sung's eyes that Voss recognized. Honor. Duty. A belief in something greater than oneself. And if we refuse? Asked Voss. If we reject your charter and continue to fight? Taeho met his gaze. Then we will defend ourselves. We will continue to free those who wish to be free. We will continue to fight until the last council ship is destroyed or surrendered. We would rather not. We have lost many good people in this war, but we will do what we must. The chamber was silent. Tema seethed with rage, but she knew there was nothing she could do. The council's power was broken. Their fleets were destroyed. Their allies had abandoned them. They could accept humanity's offer or watch their civilization collapse entirely. Voss looked at the charter on Kira's datapad. It was everything his council had stood against. Equality, freedom, self-determination. For 3 million years, they had believed these ideas were dangerous, that order required control, that peace required submission. Perhaps they had been wrong. I am old, said Voss finally. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species burn themselves to extinction in pointless wars. I built this council to prevent such catastrophes. I believed I was saving the galaxy. He stood, his ancient bones creaking. But I see now that I was only postponing the inevitable. Change cannot be stopped. Freedom cannot be caged forever. You humans have proven that. He walked slowly toward Taeho and extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. I accept your charter. Not because I believe you are right about everything, but because I believe the old ways have failed. It is time to try something new. Taeho took his hand. Then let us build something better together. 50 years later, the Galactic Union held its anniversary celebration. 100 species gathered on a space station built to represent their cooperation. Humans and aliens who had once been enemies now worked side by side, exploring the universe, solving problems, building a future together. On Earth, a statue stood in Geneva. 5 figures carved in bronze, gazing upward at the stars. Captain Taeho, Dr. Yuna, General June, Engineer Hana, Admiral Sung, the heroes who had refused to surrender, who had fought for freedom when all seemed lost, who had changed the course of galactic history. The inscription at the base read, "They watched, we rose." Ambassador Kira, now very old, visited the statue every year on the anniversary of the war's end. She would stand before it and remember. Remember the fear and the fighting and the terrible cost of freedom. Remember the humans who had shown her that a better galaxy was possible. And she would smile, because she knew that the fire they had lit would never go out. It would burn across the stars forever, passed from generation to generation, species to species, until every being in the universe understood the truth that humanity had taught them. Freedom is not given, it is taken. It is fought for. It is won. And once won, it must be defended, protected, and shared with all who dream of a better tomorrow. The Council had tried to control humanity. They had sent their fleets, and their ultimatums, and their threats. They had believed that their power was absolute, that no young species could challenge their ancient authority. They had been wrong. Humanity was beyond their reach. Not because of superior weapons or tactics, though they had those. Not because of luck or timing, though they had those too. Humanity was beyond their reach because they had something the Council had forgotten existed, the unbreakable will to be free. And in the end, that made all the difference. The stars shone bright over Geneva. The statue watched the sky. And somewhere out there, humanity continued to explore, to grow, to reach for new horizons. Their story was far from over. It was just beginning.